guys, it's Megan with Vigilante Vibes, and I'm coming to you with another Pride Month breakdown of a character in Marvel Comics, and it's Loki. You cannot go past Pride Month without talking about Loki. So I'll tell you about Loki in the MCU, and I'll give you the comic version after it, and I hope you enjoy it. Loki was actually the son of Laufey, the frost giant king, but he was abandoned as a baby and left to die. Odin found him and brought him to Asgard, raising him as his own alongside Thor. Growing up, Loki became known as the god of mischief. When Thor was about to be crowned king, Loki messed up things by letting the frost giants into the Asgard, which led to Thor getting banished to Earth. In the chaos, Loki discovered that he was actually a frost giant. When Odin fell into a deep sleep, Loki took the throne. But Thor came back, stopped him, and destroyed the Bifrost Bridge, causing Loki to fall into a wormhole. He ended up with Thanos, who gave him the scepter and control of an alien army to invade Earth in exchange for the Tesseract. Loki caused the Chitauri invasion of New York, but was ultimately defeated by the Avengers and taken back to Asgard, where he was imprisoned. Not for long, obviously. Later, when their mother Frigga was killed, Thor freed Loki to help fight back at the Dark Elves. Loki faked his death during the battle and secretly returned to Asgard, ousting Odin and ruling in disguise for years. Eventually, Thor returned, exposed Loki, and together they found Odin just before he died. That opened the door for Hela, their very powerful sister, to return and wage war. Loki and Thor ended up on Sakaar, where Loki tried to cozy up to the Grandmaster while Thor was forced into gladiator fights. But when it came down to saving Asgard, Loki chose to help. He brought Surtur to destroy Hela, which also led to Asgard's destruction. Before escaping, Loki took the Tesseract again. While heading to Earth with Thor and the remaining Asgardians, their ship was attacked by Thanos. Loki tried to kill Thanos but failed, and after some final words, Thanos killed him for good. After that absolutely unhinged way to start a movie, the next time we see Loki is in his own show titled Loki. After his failed attempts to conquer Earth in 2012, Loki is apprehended by the Time Variance Authority, the TVA, for creating a branched timeline. He's judged and faced with being pruned or disintegrated, but is instead recruited by Mobius to help track down a dangerous Loki variant. Their journey leads them to discover the TVA's origins and the threat posed by King the Conqueror and his variants. This is where we all learned about variants, including variants of Loki, which of course means Sylvie. Sylvie is a princess of Asgard who caused a Nexus event as a child and escaped the Time Variance Authority. Sylvie hid throughout the timelines while seeking revenge against the TVA and the Timekeepers. On the cusp of her planned success, however, she was interrupted by another Loki variant, with whom she will eventually form an uneasy alliance. Having convinced Loki of the TVA's lies and manipulations, they worked together to fight them, discovering the Timekeepers were fakes. That was season 1. Season 2, in my opinion, was much more important to Loki's story. In Loki Season 2, Loki, struggling with his time slipping, tries to prevent the universe from collapsing by fixing the TVA's temporal loom and preventing a catastrophic event. He eventually learns to control his time slipping and, with the help of Sylvie, Mobius, and OB, attempts to stop He Who Remains from being killed by Sylvie. Loki ultimately sacrificed himself to save the multiverse, becoming the new protector of all timelines, essentially the god of stories. And that is where we left the little angel in the MCU. We will see more of Tom Hiddleston as Loki, as he is confirmed to be in Avengers Doomsday and has spoken out about it very much recently. So it's a sure thing. That was the MCU version of Loki. Now onto the comic version of him, which is much more. just it's a lot more. Loki's first appearance in Marvel Comics was in Journey into Mystery number 85 in October of 1962. He was created by writer Stan Lee, scripter Larry Lieber, and penciler Jack Kirby. It's worth noting that Loki had a historical appearance in Venus number 6 in 1949, but his modern and more recognized portrayal began in Journey into Mystery number 85. Loki was born to Laufey, the former king of the Frost Giants in Jotunheim. He was born small and was embarrassment to his parents and was segregated from the other giants. After Odin defeated Laufey in battle, he found baby Loki and decided to adopt him unknowingly, setting a prophecy from his father Bor into motion. Growing up, Loki always felt like the odd one out. He struggled with feeling isolated and believed Odin, his adopted father, treated Thor way better than him. Watching Odin and Thor share a close bond made Loki very jealous. And he channeled those feelings into pranking his brother, sometimes for laughs, other times just completely out of spite. And it was always out of pocket. That jealousy really peaked when Odin gave Thor Mjolnir, the powerful enchanted hammer. Loki was so bitter about it that he actually messed with the weapon's creation, which is why it ended up with a handle that's a bit too short. Constantly living in Thor's shadow, Loki kept lashing out, using mischief as his way of pushing back. Even as a kid, Loki's pranks could just be downright mean. When he found out Loki liked Sif, the fierce golden-haired warrior, he cut off her hair while she was sleeping. Thor, assuming Loki was behind it, which he was, demanded he fix it. As some time went on, Loki's tricks got bolder and more frequent. Eventually, Odin locked him up. But Loki, being skilled in magic, managed to break out and went off to learn even more dark sorcery from a wizard named Eldred. With his new powers, he got better at hiding his schemes from Odin and Thor, giving him more freedom to stir up trouble. Fueled by his endless jealousy over Mjolnir, Loki made it his mission to defeat Thor and take the throne of Asgard. He didn't care that Odin had taken him as a child. He was focused on power. After breaking out of prison, Loki fully turned his back on Asgard. He had 3 children with the goddess Angerbada. And I am going to butcher some of these names, so I'm so sorry. There are just so many weird names and stories in Loki's story. It's too much. The kids' names was Jormungand, the giant serpent, Fenris Wolf, and Hela, the goddess of death. So in the comics, Hela is his daughter, not his sister. Staying true to his trickster, he even tricked the goddess Saigon into marrying him and pretending to be her true love, Theoric. Later on, Loki discovered the prophecy of Ragnarok, basically the end of Asgard, and learned that he was destined to kill Balder to bring it about. Rather than fight fate, Loki leaned into it and tried to make the prophecy come true. Things got more dangerous for Thor when Odin banished him to Earth in a human form as Dr. Donald Blake, making him vulnerable. Loki took full advantage of this and putting together a crew of powerful villains like the Enchantress, Executioner, Absorbing Man, Mr. Hyde, Super Skrull, and more to try and take Thor down once and for all. Loki's schemes against Thor didn't always go as planned. Most of them, they all never went as planned. One of them even led to the creation of the Avengers. He tried to trick Thor into fighting the Hulk by rerouting a distress call meant for the Fantastic Four to Dr. Donald Blake, Thor's human identity, as I said. But instead of just Thor responding, Iron Man, Ant-Man, and the Wasp also picked up the signal. When they figured out Loki was behind it, Thor teamed up with the Hulk to stop him, and just like that, the Avengers were born. On top of always trying to one-up Thor, Loki also had his eyes on Odin's throne. Like I said, he just wants power. When Odin went into his deep Odin sleep, I want that for me, Megan sleep, my Megan sleep. Loki saw a chance to take over Asgard, but it didn't last. He was forced to give it up when heavy hitters like Mangog and Searcher showed up and threatened him. Later, Loki tried to trick both the Avengers and the Defenders into gathering the powerful evil eye for him by teaming up with Dormammu. But the heroes figured out, beating them, and as a punishment, Odin banished Loki to Earth disguised as a wandering vagrant. When Searcher launched an attack on Asgard, Loki was supposed to stay out of it thanks to a deal he made, kinda. Of course, he didn't honor it and ended up fighting alongside Thor and Odin. When Odin sacrificed himself to defeat Searcher, the throne was up for grabs again. Not wanting Thor to take over, Loki turned him into a frog, but even as a frog, Thor still had Mjolnir and managed to force Loki to undo the spell. Later, when the Egyptian god Seth sent his death demons to attack Asgard, Loki refused to team up with him or other Egyptian gods. Then he discovered Odin was being held prisoner inside the Black Pyramid and surprisingly worked with Thor to try to rescue him. Still salty about the Avengers, Loki came up with a plan called the Axe of Vengeance. He secretly got a bunch of top supervillains like Doctor Doom, Kingpin, Magneto, Red Skull to stir up chaos. Loki convinced each of them that they were the mastermind behind it all while he pulled the strings from behind the scenes. It is just so Loki brand. It is so on brand, so Loki coded. But as always, Thor caught on and shut Loki down once again. Later on, Loki cooked up another scheme to mess with Thor, who at the time was sharing his identity with the immortal named Eric Masterson, aka Thunderstrike. With help from Amora the Enchantress, Loki kidnapped Eric's son, Kevin, to take him. Thor managed to rescue Kevin, but Loki still fired off a deadly energy blast at the boy and his mother, Marcy. Amora, who wasn't okay with hurting a child, secretly redirected the blast to hit Kevin's babysitter instead. Thor was pissed. Using Mjolnir, he drained Loki's life force and seemingly killed him. As a result, Thor ended up stuck on Eric's subconscious while Eric took over the role of Thor. But surprise, Loki wasn't actually dead. But if we all know Loki, that's not a surprise. His spirit had taken over Odin's body while Odin was in his deep Odin sleep. For a short time, Loki ruled Asgard. Luckily, Eric and Sif recovered Odin's spirit, restored it into his body, and Loki got dragged off by Mephisto. In another universe, the Ultraverse, Loki tried to collect the 6 Infinity Gems by taking on the Ultras. Then he found out there was a secret 7th gem, the Ego Gem. This led to a showdown between the Avengers and a team called Ultra Force, thanks to a setup by the Grand Master. Loki lost and was sent back to his original reality. And one of the most extreme stunts to bring about Ragnarok and the end of Asgard, Loki got his hands on the mystical Uru hammer and trapped Asgard in an endless loop of death and rebirth. Thor, fed up with the cycle, actually beheaded Loki and carried around his still alive head. Eventually, Thor let Searcher destroy Asgard and confronted the cosmic beings known as They Who Sit Above in the Shadow, ending the cycle once and for all. Both Thor and Loki were believed to have perished in the destruction. But if we know Loki, and I think we do, I think we know he did not. After Ragnarok, the souls of the Asgardians ended up hidden inside humans on Earth. Loki was reborn in Sif's body, while Sif's spirit was trapped in an old woman. It sucks for Sif. Meanwhile, Balder, whose soul was stuck in the destroyer armor, started gathering the scattered Asgardians to help Thor rebuild Asgard in Broxton, Oklahoma. Thor eventually freed Sif's spirit and discovered Loki had returned, now in a female form. Still up to his old tricks, Loki pretended to be helpful and even told Balder that he was also Odin's son to gain his trust. During the Skrull invasion, the secret invasion, it was kind of a big deal, Loki stirred up more chaos by convincing everyone that Beta Ray Bill was actually a Skrull. Thor saw straight through it and called him out. Then Loki joined a secret group called the Cabal, teaming up with the likes of Doctor Doom, Emma Frost, Norman Osborn, Namor, and the Hood. Osborn promised Loki he'd rebuild Asgard, and once the Asgardians were dealt with, Loki could rule Earth. And just to make things even weirder, Loki, thanks to Hela, went back in time, killed Odin's father Bor, tricked a young Odin into adopting him as a child. Like, why? It's just So unhinged. While Sif was stuck in a dying human body, she revealed her true identity to Donald Blake, who at the time was trying to fix his walking stick, which was actually Mjolnir, so he could turn back into Thor. She told him that her real form was about to return and encouraged him to go say goodbye to her while he still could, which seemed like a kind gesture. Not long after, Loki's male form came back and Sif was finally able to reclaim her true body. For a while, Loki pulled a long con by pretending to be Wanda Maximoff to manipulate the mighty Avengers and mess with Norman Osborn's plans. But the act fell apart when Wiccan, Wanda's son, cast a spell to summon her and Loki showed up instead. Before leaving, Wanda, who is really Loki, creepily warned that Wiccan and the Young Avengers would all die screaming. Then Loki played another card. He unleashed Absorbing Man, who had absorbed the power of the Cosmic Cube and even convinced Osborn, who, while disguised as a woman, to embrace his Green Goblin persona again. Loki pushed Osborn to launch an attack on Asgard and even shapeshifted into the Green Goblin to help stir up chaos and force people out of the city. He also tried to take control of Thor's Valkyries. They resisted at first, but after Loki defeated them, they pledged their loyalty to him. I guess you don't really have a choice once he destroys you. He then went to Hela and asked what she'd give him in return for the new Hel, her realm, Hel with one L. She said anything. So Loki made a deal with Mephisto using Bor's Valkyries as leverage. In the end, Hela got her new Hel, and Loki got himself erased from the books of Hel, which cut his ties from both the underworld and Asgard. When asked why he did all this, Loki's answer was simple: for the fun of it. But that fun did not last long. His manipulations led to a massive showdown. New Avengers, Young Avengers, Secret Warriors versus Osborn's Dark Avengers. Then the Void, the dark side of Sentry, who's Robert Reynolds. I have a breakdown of all about Sentry if you look in my videos. Showed up and nearly wiped out all of the heroes. Realizing how bad things had gotten and feeling guilty, Loki asked Odin to use the Norn Stones to empower the heroes and give them a fighting chance. But it was too late. The Void had killed Loki, tearing him apart. Just before dying, he apologized to Thor. But we know Loki. We know that's not it. That is not the end. Loki didn't stay gone, though. He came back reincarnated as a young thief in Paris named Serer. Serer? There's like 3 R's in it. I don't know. This time without all his god powers. Thor, disguised as someone else, found him and chased him down. Eventually, Thor helped him unlock some of his memories, and Loki took on the new identity as Kid Loki. While he didn't remember his past life in full, he carried a deep sense of guilt from it. Together, they returned to what was left of Asgard in Bronxton, Oklahoma, which was heavily damaged during the siege. Eventually, Kid Loki was visited by the spirit of his old self, the villainous Loki, who revealed that dying at the hands of the Void had all been a part of a bigger plan to bring him back to life. But Kid Loki wasn't interested in going back to who he was. Instead, he turned the spirit into a powerless magpie named Eichel, a ghost version of his former self. Later, Kid Loki helped Thor take down the Asgardian god of fear, known as the Serpent, by creating a distraction. He even rewrote history to invent a child named Leah, who had supposedly helped the Serpent and then sided with Loki, though he eventually abandoned her at the dawn of time. After the battle, Thor died and was erased from everyone's memory. Kid Loki, with the help of Silver Surfer, brought him back. In the meantime, Asgard was rebuilt as Asgardia, using a mix of Tony Stark's tech and magic. It was eventually relocated to the moon and later to orbit around Saturn. But Eichel, the magpie Loki, wasn't done scheming. He started appearing to Kid Loki in visions, slowly manipulating him into absorbing him, which would bring the old Loki back for real. This plan involved an artifact that they accidentally helped create called Nightmare's Crown, something Mephisto could use to take over reality. Eichel, warned that if he took over Kid Loki's mind, Kid Loki would vanish completely. But so would the artifact. Kid Loki, realizing that he had become a better person, chose to sacrifice himself. Before disappearing, he told Ikal that the old Loki would never change and that someone would stop him eventually. Kid Loki was wiped out, and Ikal fully took over his body, now becoming the third Loki, pretending to be the heroic trickster, but still carrying a darker intentions. One of his first moves was freeing Wiccan and Hulkling from the villain Mother, an interdimensional parasite. The Young Avengers were grateful, but didn't really trust him, which is fair. As they kept facing off against Mother, Loki suggested two extreme options: kill Wiccan, since Mother was after his power, or let him borrow Wiccan's power temporarily. Wiccan reluctantly agreed, and Loki vanished. But unexpectedly, Kid Loki, still lingering inside, briefly returned and convinced the current Loki to do the right thing. Loki came back and defeated Mother. But there was a twist. Loki admitted to Mother that this was always his plan. He had agreed to work with her just to regain some of the magical power he lost when he became a child again. He never intended to stay loyal to her, which surprised even her. Meanwhile, Leah, the friend Loki had once abandoned, teamed up with Mother to get revenge. She rallied all of the Young Avengers exes and used them to trap Hulkling. The team tried again to stop Mother and rescue Hulkling, but even with Wiccan and Loki's combined power, it was not enough. Wiccan then cast a spell to age Loki up into a young adult, hoping it would unlock more power. It didn't work. The others started to suspect this had been Loki's plan all along. Loki denied it, but was haunted by the ghost of Kid Loki, who accused him of being a body-stealing murderer. At this point, Loki came clean. He told Wiccan to fully embrace his destiny as the Demiurge, the being Mother feared the most. The team traveled to Mother's realms where Leah was waiting. She confronted Loki, revealed she had been holding on to his missing powers, and exposed all of his guilt. Once Loki admitted everything, Leah and all the exes vanished. Hulkling was freed, and he and Wiccan finally defeated Mother. Feeling crushed by shame and guilt after Kid Loki said he'd never change, this Loki was desperate for a way to make things right. So, he made a deal with the top leaders of Asgardia, the All-Mother and her team, to do missions for them and wipe his dark past clean. That's how he became the Agent of Asgard. His first job? Find 5 special keys that Odin made for him to prove he was worthy someday. After tracking them down, he used the keys to open a case holding Graham, the Sword of Truth used by the hero Sigurd, and took it for himself. Next up, he had to save Thor, who was infected by some kind of evil corruption. Loki snuck into the Avengers Tower, dodged everyone, and stabbed Thor with Graham. This released the corruption, which Loki trapped in a jar that he called the Jar of Lies, and brought back to the All-Mother. But what he didn't know was that inside the jar was actually King Loki from the future, who'd come back to make sure this story happened. Then Loki met Verity Willis, a human who can see through any lie. His next mission was to bring back some Asgardians who gone rogue, like Sigurd, who was apparently breaking the law just by wandering the world. Loki returned Sigurd to the All-Mother, but when Sigurd got thrown into prison, Loki felt bad and teamed up with Lorelei, Thor, and Verity to break him out. In the dungeon, Loki ran into King Loki again, who could move freely through time to ensure his future unfolds, once the All-Mother wants to, but that means Loki can't really change his fate. Frustrated, Loki quit the All-Mother's secret service and helped Thor dig into the mystery of their unknown sister, Aldrif, or Angela, is the easier way to say that name, who was raised by some angel-hating group in another realm. Loki also rescued Odin from exile and brought him back to Asgardia. After all this, Doctor Doom time-traveled from the future and saw Loki was the cause of the terrible destiny. Doom captured present-day Loki in a time bubble to stop the future from happening. Loki's only hope was Verity, who'd accidentally come along and had Loki's invisibility amulet. She worked with Doom's genius goddaughter, Valeria Richards, to figure out that Loki's future self had seriously messed up things. Magneto showed up asking for help against Red Onslaught, a clone of the Red Skull. Loki helped take down the Stark Sentinels, while Doom and Scarlet Witch cast a spell that flipped Red Onslaught's morals. But it ended up flipping everyone's, including Loki's. Even though he's trying to be good, the spell made him act bad again. Despite that, he stopped Thor from killing people and found Mjolnir, which Thor had lost the worthiness to lift. Loki used the hammer to fight Thor until the spell was reversed, and Loki went back to himself, guilty, but now unable to lie. Since he couldn't lie anymore, Loki came clean to Verity and Thor about killing Kid Loki and who he really was. Thor was furious, couldn't accept that his little brother was gone, and took it out on Loki. He dragged him to Asgardia for judgment. Loki tried to fight back with Graham, but Thor smashed a sword. Loki apologized, but Thor was not having it. He punched Loki, told him to rot, and said they'd never meet again. Loki was shunned and banished by the All-Mother, so Odin kicked him out of Asgardia and sent him back to Midgard. Verity was waiting for him there, but so was King Loki. King Loki spilled the truth about how Loki's good deeds never really erased his sins. He was always seen as the villain, never trusted, which eventually made him snap and start a war with Thor that burned everything down. Kid Loki, now ruler of the Deadland, set Loki on fire, sending him to a secret place where he met the original Loki and Kid Loki. They gave him two choices: become a villain or destroy yourself. Just then, Verity called him thanks to a magical cell reception, and she realized King Loki didn't recognize her, which meant a new timeline was on its way. Loki chose a different path, realizing lies are just stories and he could make up his own story. So he destroyed himself, which changed the future and sent King Loki 8 months ahead just before the multiverse ends. Then Loki showed up to Verity's door again, reborn as the god of stories. Loki helped stop King Loki from wrecking Asgard, finally getting the praise from Odin he's always wanted. But he brushed it off since he wasn't that guy anymore. Then, with Verity, he survived the big multiverse incursion. In this empty void, he fought off some shadowy beings demanding Asgard stories and came across King Loki again. King Loki seemed kind of sorry, but Loki stuck him with his scepter as a reminder of what he could turn into if he was not careful. After Earth 616 was fixed up post-incursion, Loki's adopted mom, Frigga, sent him to sneak into Malekith's Dark Council. To keep up with appearances, he was told to kill the new Thor, who was actually Jane Foster, but he failed and got captured, ending up back in Asgardia. Frigga faced a trial for helping Jane. Things got heated between Odin's forces and her supporters. While with the Dark Council, Loki found out Malekith planned to kill Frigga, so Loki stabbed her with a poisoned dagger, not to kill her, but to keep up the act that he was still on Malekith's side. Then Loki got ambitious and tried to run for president of the United States. He staged an attack on 2 candidates but stopped it himself, which got him some attention. He announced his campaign but was bombarded by Daily Bugle reporter Nisa, who exposed his part in the attack. Loki responded live, but it was clear he had no real plan or politics, so he lost. He said he did all of this to boost Nisa's career, but he actually worked for one of the candidates to help them win, and he got paid for it. Later, Loki won the Sorcerer Supreme title from Doctor Strange in a tournament, and Strange accepted it since Loki's god powers let him cast spells without any cost, making him super, super strong. Loki stayed at the Sanctum Sanctorum with Strange's assistant Zelma, trying to find a powerful spell called the Exile of Sing Soon hidden in her soul. Strange thought Loki planned to steal all the magic for himself, which would be catastrophic, especially since taking the spell from Zelma might kill her, and Loki had just killed his dog Bats, so Strange did not trust him. Things got wild when Strange fought Loki with help from the powerful Sentry and magic from World Tree. Strange then unleashed the Void, a dark opposite of Sentry, who fought Loki and revealed the hidden spell. Loki reached into Zelma's soul to grab the spell and used it to bring magic back to the world by jump-starting the dragon lines. Together, Loki, Strange, and the Sentry fought off the Void and locked it back up. Afterwards, Strange apologized for assuming Loki would destroy everything, and Loki said he had planned to keep it together to redeem himself as long as he was Sorcerer Supreme. But then Zelma, who glimpsed into Loki's soul, demanded the truth. Loki admitted that the whole tournament was an illusion and warned about coming events like the War of the Realms, Hell on Earth, and the gathering of the Infinity Gems. But Strange did not buy it and teleported Loki to a not so fun place. Before leaving, Loki made peace with the spirits of Strange's dog bats that he killed. When Loki kicked off the final host of the Dark Celestials, his goal was to get rid of Celestials infected by the Horde bugs, which sounds horrible. But others thought he was releasing the infection on Earth. The Avengers came back together to fight the Dark Celestials and save the planet, which was exactly Loki's plan all along. After they won, Loki was captured and handed over to the Celestials for punishment, but Wolverine, possessed by the Phoenix Force, broke him out. At one point, Loki found out that all the stories about him and Asgardian texts ended badly. The Tomb Keeper, Floa, told him that there was one story missing pages, something about the God Quarry guarded by the Coven of Elder Witches. Loki and Floa went there and saw the coven burn and met an alternate version of Loki who was more like Thor, carrying Mjolnir and all the Infinity Gems. Thor Loki left and Loki stayed behind, deciding that he needed those stories. He teamed up with Gamora, who had stolen the stones from the Infinity Watch, and they went back to the God Quarry to see what was underneath. Gamora betrayed Loki, trapped him in a pocket realm inside the Soul Stone. Inside, Loki built a team, somehow. Found copies of the stones, escaped, and defeated Gamora. Then he took the stones back and banished her into the Soul Gem. Loki then explored under the God Quarry where the stones didn't work and Celestials ruled. One showed him a glimpse into his future, which he did not like, so he laughed it off and moved on. He returned the stones to the Cosmic Avengers, heroes from different dimensions, to help restore the universe. Later, Loki joined Malekith's Dark Council, which wanted to start a war between the realms. When Loki betrayed the council and killed Frigga to save her from Malekith's evil plans, his real dad, King Luffy, ate him. He just ate him. While inside Luffy's stomach, Loki reflected on his past and realized his old actions pushed Malekith towards villainy. Feeling sorry, he promised to never become King Loki and used his magic plus Heimdall's sword to escape, killing Luffy and ending the war. After the War of the Realms ended with Earth coming out on top, Loki tried a new hero vibe, patching up things with Thor, and even took over Luffy's throne. But ruling really wasn't his thing. He got bored, skipped out on his duties, made this proxy called Frosty to handle things while he was headed back to Earth. Loki tried to join the Avengers, but Tom and Iron Man shut him down. So instead, he linked up with Now and Then, these kids called the Children of Eternity, who used story magic to lock in a hero's life and death. Then Loki ran into Nightmare, the Fear Lord, who was mad at Frosty for kicking him out of Jotunheim. Nightmare trapped Loki in a crazy illusion that made him wonder if he was really a hero or still stuck dead inside Luffy's stomach. Things got real when a mortal named Megan, who was hunting Nightmare for messing with her past and making her never meet her wife Robin, showed up and shot Nightmare. Loki stopped Nightmare from going off and challenged him to fight fair, no powers. But Loki had a trick up his sleeve. He'd set up a trap with one of Stark's new gadgets, a car that smashed Nightmare and looked like it killed him. After that, Loki gave Megan some solid advice to find her soulmate and fix what she lost, a real hero move that Thor and Stark just so happened to catch. Meanwhile, a future, much older Loki was protecting a kid from what he called the unfather Thor. Later, Loki ended up locked up in the raft, starting doubting his memories. Like, were they even real? I guess he was really going through it. So he called up his friend Verity, the human lie detector. He told her some wild stories, like teaming up with Wolverine back in 1911 during the tail end of the Wild West, and how he was the god of outcasts before he told his first lie. He admitted that he was scared that his relentlessness might have broken the universe and confessed he missed her. He felt something huge was coming and needed to know his new memories, especially the ones about things that hadn't happened yet. He needed to know if they were real. Verity, now a journalist, took notes while Loki talked nonstop, realizing that all of his stories were true, but only because he remembered them that way. Then Loki busted himself out of the cell, started naming all these crazy things he remembered and that were about to happen, the hidden secret of Bifrost, the next god of chaos, a big fight for Jotunheim throne, the making of Mjolnir, and the Unfather. Finally, he asked Verity to come with him through a portal to start a new story, one that's far from over. Whew, that was a lot. And that's not even his full story. That's just some notable things in his life that I feel like kind of give you a pretty good idea of who he is as a character. So, that is Loki. And as some of you may know, some of you may not, Loki in the MCU is bisexual, while his comic counterpart is gender fluid, bisexual / pansexual, which is why I'm covering him during Pride Month. So, as always, I have some comics for you to check out to get to know Loki even better. These are comics I like, so if you have any other recommendations, just let me know in the comments, because I want to read them too. Starting off, Journey into Mystery, number 85. Avengers number 1 from 1963. Journey into Mystery, number 103. X-Men Asgardian Wars. Fantastic Four, number 353. Thor and Loki Blood Brothers. Loki number 1 from 2023. Loki, Mistress of Mischief. Loki, Agent of Asgard. Loki, the god who fell to earth. So that is all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm so sorry it was so long. There's just so much to cover. But either way, I really hope you enjoyed it. With that being said, have a marvelous day.